What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to the workshop. I hope you're all doing well. Now I have a bit of a workshop vlog video for you in this one. I haven't done one of these in quite some time, but I thought I'd do one just to let you guys know what's going on. So in this video, I'm going to cover what's happening with the channel, what's going on in the workshop, and I also have a few questions that you guys sent me as well that you wanted answered, so we'll endeavour to do that in this video. So let's just jump into it. A nice handy workshop vlog. Okay, let's start off with a few channel updates. Well, I've just hit the 60,000 subscriber mark, or I've gone past it now. It's only at 61,000. So that's absolutely fantastic. I never envisaged when I started this channel that I'd had 60,000 plus subscribers. So absolutely fantastic. And thanks to everybody who's liked, commented, and subscribed to the channel over the last few years. It really means a lot, especially all your comments. I like to read them all and try and get back to everybody if I can. And I've got loads of great advice from you guys, tips, hints, and all that kind of good stuff. So it's been absolutely fantastic. So it's over the 60,000 subscriber mark now, which is absolutely great. Now, on the other side, it's not so great as I haven't been able to put out nearly as much content as I would have liked over the last few months. I am extremely busy in my day job as an electrician, and it's just getting busier. So I've been working weekends, 12-hour days for the last few weeks, and it's going to be for the foreseeable future coming up into the summer as well. So I'm not going to get out nearly as much content or projects as I would like, which is kind of why the hand tool woodworking stuff has kind of stopped. I need a lot of time to make those projects and to actually edit the videos and all that kind of stuff. So it's very, very hard to do a project when you only have a couple of hours, maybe on a Saturday or Sunday, to try and get a video out. So it's not that I have gone away from this. I'm dying to get back into some hand tool woodworking. It's just time constraints is really limiting me on what kind of content I can put out at the minute. But on the flip side, I suppose, of that, it's absolutely fantastic that the business is growing and I'm getting busier and busier and busier. So it's a bit of a give and take at the minute. Now, I've also closed down my Patreon. So I just said to the guys over on Patreon, because I wasn't able to put out nearly as much content as I would have liked, and tutorials, drawings, all that kind of stuff, make it available for people on Patreon, I just closed it down. Even though the guys on Patreon said don't close it down, we're still quite happy to support the channel, I just felt like I wasn't delivering value for money for those guys, and there was no way I was going to ask them for money or a subscription every month if I'm not getting the same volume of content out. So I've shut down my Patreon. It may not be for good, as I said over on Patreon. If I can deliver a much better experience for people over on Patreon in the future, I will relaunch Patreon. So I'll have things like extra videos for Patreon supporters. I might even have project drawings, diagrams, all that kind of stuff, free plans, if I have time. If I don't have time, I'm not going to start Patreon back up, because I really want to deliver value for money for everybody who supported the channel over there. So I just want to say thank you to all the Patreons who did support the channel over the last couple of years. It's been absolutely fantastic, and every single penny I got from you guys went back in to the stuff that I was doing in this workshop. So for temporarily close down Patreon, if I get time, I'm going to relaunch it bigger and better. But for now, we're going to shut that down. So that's kind of where the channel is at. Fantastic that I've reached 60,000 subscribers. Not so good that I can't put out as much content as I would like, or take on some big projects that I had planned. They're kind of getting sidelined at the minute, but my business is growing, so positives and negatives everywhere. Okay, workshop updates, things that might be potentially coming up on a channel, some jobs that I have to absolutely do around the workshop. One of the things is the dust extraction on the miter saw station. Now, I did add this kind of cowl or hood or tent, whatever you want to call it, over my miter saw. It's been working absolutely brilliant. It does contain all the dust in here and stops it escaping around the workshop. Now, I get tons of comments about this. I have a video on this. This is just an old gazebo that I cut up and just made a tent out of. This isn't something I bought. Everybody asks me, where did I buy it? Where can you get it? Where can I get one? Well, I have a video on this. It's just a nice simple video. Literally cut up an old gazebo. If you have an old tent, anything with that kind of material, you can make yourself one of these and save yourself an absolute fortune. However, the dust extraction is still piling, all the dust is still piling up in here. I have it hooked up to my main extractor with the gully down here, if you guys will remember that video. That does a great job of creating a kind of a negative pressure in here, which keeps all the dust from escaping out into the workshop, and it does pull it down. However, it's still extremely dusty in around here. So here's the main extraction ports for the miter saw. When I hook up my record power, my main dust extractor to here, it's absolutely fantastic. It just sucks everything up. But the little shop vac I have down here is not good enough, and it's quite messy in here. So I definitely want to do something. So I'm going to either upgrade my main dust extractor to maybe one of the new CamVac type, the bigger record power ones, but they're getting quite expensive. The price of everything is absolutely skyrocketing for all materials, tools, the whole lot. Things are getting stupidly priced at the minute. So that's one idea I had, and maybe take that dust extractor on its wheels, put it underneath here and hook that up to this part, and then I can use it also for vacuuming my workshop, which is what I do use it for. Or buy a smaller record power and stick it in there permanently. That's my kind of two options to increase the dust extraction just around here, just to stop all this mess. It's one of the biggest offenders in the workshop for creating dust is your miter saw, and if you can keep it all contained in here, then you really are that's half the battle, at least one. So that's one thing I absolutely have to do. Okay, another thing I have to sort out is my MFT table. Now, it's a bit of a mess at the minute. In fact, my whole workshop is a bit of a mess. I haven't even had time to tidy it up, and I like to keep my workshop absolutely spotless, and I don't even have time to tidy it, so that's kind of playing on my nerves a little bit. But the MFT table, absolutely fantastic, it's working out great. I have multiple videos on building this thing, but I've added so much weight to it now that I have a little problem. The Axminster casters for jacking up your workbench, which are absolutely brilliant. I added a unistrut bar to them so I can jack both at the same time. They are not the issue. The issue is the actual bench itself. It sags now a little bit in the middle when I jack it up because of all the weight that's in the middle, including my table saw, which I have stored in this as well. So the two middle legs are now dragging on the floor, and it's quite a workout to try and push this, whereas I used to be able to just wheel this anywhere I wanted out of the way. Now it's dragging like crazy. So I'm going to have to add, I've already tried to bulk up the internal frame a bit to try and stop that happening, but it's kind of a waste of time. So I think the next thing to do is to add some more casters to the middle of this. That's another little thing that I have to sort out. But yeah, so it is quite a workout to move this thing at the minute, so more casters are needed. If you're building yourself this kind of design, just watch out. I know some of you have sent me multiple pictures from all over the world of you guys making one of these, but if you add tons of weight to the middle of it, when you jack it up at both ends, it will do that a little bit. So something to be, I suppose, mindful of. I'm going to have to add more casters to the middle of mine. Here's an interesting little gadget I've recently added, and these were actually sent to me by Andy over at Souther Shop. They're actually Woodpecker blade savers is what they're called. So just for storing your circular saw blades. So I have them for my table saw, and I have one hanging up over at the miter saw as well. And they're just handy little things. You get them for all different size blades, and it's just a little clip. Hold that off, and you can just wrap this around any of your blades. It protects the teeth, stop you from cutting your hands on these blades as well, because they can be quite sharp. If you drop them or anything like that, they are 100% protected in there. So if one of these happens to fall on the floor or anything, you're not going to chip, damage teeth. And it's just a nice way of storing blades, and they're relatively cheap as well, considering that most Woodpecker stuff is extremely expensive. These things are quite cheap, and they're handy just to throw a few around your blades. So yeah, Woodpecker blade savers. Okay, so that's just a couple of things around the workshop that I have to put right in the next little while, and may or may not end up as project videos. Now there's a few other things as well, but I think they will be in the Q&A section, so we'll get on and we'll do that now. So before I get to your questions, and I won't be able to answer them all, so otherwise this video will go on forever, so I'll answer as many as I can. But one of the main questions I always get asked, and that's from anybody in Ireland who's new to my channel: where do I buy my hardwoods? Now I'm not sponsored by anybody, any tool company or any hardwood company, but McMahon's Hardwoods in Waterford is where I buy all my hardwoods. That's where I go now. Price of hardwoods, even manufactured timber products, have just escalated in the last while. It's silly money now for anything, but that's where I go to get my hardwoods, McMahon Hardwoods. If you Google them, they have sites all over Ireland. Also, the carpentry store for small bits of hardwood are great. That's another question I get asked, is where do I buy my tools? And again, this is not sponsored and they're not paying me to say anything, but I find a carpentry store in Kildare to be absolutely fantastic if you're in Ireland. Axminster in the UK, and also Workshop Heaven is where I bought most of my hand tools. Absolutely brilliant. But of course, I haven't bought anything from the UK in such a long time because Brexit has put a stop to that now. It's just too expensive, there's too much VAT, and there's too much excise duty on anything coming from the UK now. So it's kind of destroyed that market, which has drove the price of everything in Ireland through the roof as well, unfortunately. But yeah, Workshop Heaven, Axminster, the carpentry store, McMahon's Hardwoods. That should answer all those questions that I get asked quite a lot. Now, on to your questions here. Okay, so the first question comes from James Connolly, and James says, "Hi John, new to the channel and loving your content." Well, welcome James, and thanks very much. Glad you're enjoying it. And you also like the Irish accent as well, but by the sound of your name, I'd say you're of Irish descent yourself, but you're living in Perth. Have you any recommendations for other similar channels? Thanks, James from Perth. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of other channels I love to watch. I like to watch Keith over at Rag and Bone Brown. He kind of does a little bit of everything as well. He's kind of doing carpentry as well as kind of woodworking, I suppose you would call it, and he's general building stuff. He does loads of different stuff, so he's always got interesting content. Peter Millard over in 10 Minute Workshop, quite enjoy him. Another Irish woodworker, Tommy at Era Workshop. Definitely check out Tommy. He's an expert in what he does. I'm just a hobbyist, so definitely check out Tommy's channel. Matt Esley, Rob Cosman, there's so 3x3 Custom. There's so many. I spend way too much time on YouTube, but that's just a handful of guys and gals that I like to watch. So next question comes from Mark Geezy. Hi John, one concern a lot of us have during the winter months is keeping our workshop/garages warm, and especially insulating roofs, etc. I like you have quite a large garage/worktop with a metal roof. It gets freezing in here, not to mention the issues of cold weather. And basically you're asking me about, am I going to insulate my workshop? Well, I had thought about it. I think I've covered this before in my workshop tour videos. My shed is not insulated. I could have bought it insulated at the time, but that just was out of my budget. I could just afford to build the actual workshop at the time I built it. In hindsight, maybe I should have waited a few more months and got it fully insulated. It's not a real issue. It is roasting hot in here in the summer. I'm actually sweating making this video, and all I'm doing is talking. I get a tiny bit of condensation in here in the winter time. Actually, one thing I have noticed is by leaving the tool cabinet open all winter, I've got no rust on my tools. If I close it, it tends to condensate, but leaving it open to the same temperature as the rest of the workshop, it seems to have stopped all the rust. So even though we had a kind of a cold, wet winter this year, I got no rust on my tools, and that's just by leaving them open to the air. Go figure. But insulating the workshop is something I would like to do down the road. Will it happen? I'm not sure. Definitely, if I was to insulate the walls, I'd have to pull everything back off the walls, redo the whole workshop. So that's a kind of a massive project that would, yeah, I don't quite fancy that. But yeah, insulating the roof, it's something I've definitely thought about. It's not something I have planned. So hopefully that answers that question. Now, before I move away from that insulation question, I should have just said what I would use on the ceiling is probably the 50mm Kingspan board. So the foam boards is what I would use. I wouldn't use any fiberglass or anything like that, because then I would have to sheet the ceiling as well. So yeah, probably the file-backed Kingspan foam 50mm or 2-inch boards is what I would have used. That's what it would have come from the factory with, if it was to be insulated as I bought it. But that's what I would actually put in the ceiling. So hopefully that answers all that question. Now on to the next question. And this comes from Project Rebuild. Hi John, what project would have you enjoyed doing the most to date? I hope all the family are good and work is keeping you out of trouble. Well, work is certainly keeping me out of trouble because I don't have time for anything else, and the family are great, thanks, and I hope you and yours are doing fantastic as well. So favourite projects to date, really loved the resin table. That was kind of a lot of work went into that. It turned out absolutely fantastic. It's in my kind of whiskey room, kind of themed room that I did, and everybody that comes into the house just thinks it's absolutely fantastic. It does look great, turned out absolutely brilliant. It was a real learning curve, never made one before. The table has waved a little bit because I made it from a piece of oak that was rotten down the middle, but it was that rotten section that gives it its interesting look. But obviously that wood is just going to expand and contract. It's not very stable at all, but it gives the table a really lovely tactile feel. So it still feels like a proper piece of wood, even though it's not perfectly smooth like glass. But I just think that adds to the actual character of the table. So that's one of the ones. And another project that I absolutely love, every time I walk past it, my wife loves it as well, is the shadow box light that I made. So being an electrician and a woodworker, I love making lamps from wood. It's just kind of marries the two things that I do, I suppose. But that one little simple little project with the mitre splines and an antique brass switch that I rescued or salvaged and redid, that looks absolutely fantastic. And I have it again in the whiskey room, and every time I walk past it, I just think it looks great, if I do say so myself. So there I think are two of my favourite projects. Even though the shadow box light, nobody really watched it, it's still one of my favourite things. So on to the next question. Okay, on to the next question, and I'm just walking around my workshop to keep this visually interesting. I know my skills as a filmmaker are unsurpassed. But Paul Brennan asks, hi John, what machine do you plan or would you like to add to your workshop and why? Well, I've already talked about the dust extraction. That's something I always looking to improve my dust extraction. So maybe even a small dust extractor over there, or put that dust extractor I have and swap that for a bigger one. Maybe another thing I would really love to do is add a metal turning lathe to the workshop. Now I almost pulled the trigger and got one a couple of times this year, but with the time constraints and everything else, it's like, I can't get into metalworking and try and do woodworking in a woodworking channel. I would love to have loads of free time to kind of add the metalworking thing into the making part of my channel. Something I always wanted to get into, but just with time constraints, I think it would be absolutely madness to go off and buy a metalworking lathe right now, because again, that's a completely different discipline and rabbit hole to go down. I have a wood turning lathe, which I haven't been used. I really want to get back into do some wood turning projects as well. A drum sander possibly, but again, I'm not doing enough stuff in the workshop. I really enjoyed making the cutting boards, and a drum sander would have been absolutely brilliant to have, but justifying it just for one cutting board, I can't really do at the minute. I would love a, what do they call it, a spiral cutter in my planar thicknesser, or upgrade my planar thicknesser, even though it's a good one for a hobbyist. Sharpening those blades the whole time can be a real pain. Setting the blades is a real pain. It's really time consuming. So a spiral cutter in a planar thicknesser. Now I almost went off and bought a second hand one. There was a Axminster trade one that came up for sale in Ireland second hand. It was just nearly new. I nearly went and got it, and I had to stop myself because again, I have to justify its use, but that's something I would absolutely love as well. If I can get more content out and it gets more use, maybe I could justify upgrading my planar thicknesser. So that's kind of the machine question. Okay, so I'll try and get through 2 more questions. I have a load more from Instagram and stuff like that, but I'm probably not going to get to them all, otherwise this video is going to get way too long. So I'll try and get you guys on the next workshop vlog. So Dennis Chadwick asks, hi John, there seems to be a big increase at the moment between American YouTubers doing collaboration videos to boost popularity for each other, and woodworking is a niche on YouTube. Is this something you've thought about and considered for this side of the world? Yeah, absolutely. And I have been asked by a good few channels to do actually collab stuff, but I barely have any time to even make my own content at the minute, so I can't commit to anything collaboration wise with other YouTubers, even though it is something I would love to do. But like I said, I have such time constraints. You would really need a block of time to set aside to plan a project, to plan a video that 2 YouTubers could kind of do together, and I have no time at the minute or for the foreseeable future. So something I have definitely talked about. It's something I have absolutely been asked to do, and it's something I've had to decline on multiple occasions because, like I said, I have barely time to even make my own content at the minute. So hopefully that answers your question, Dennis. And last question then, Scuba Spud 25 asks, what's the one tool you regret buying the most? Now I got asked this question a lot from most workshop vlogs, and I won't bang on about it, but the Record Power whetstone grinder, and I've made multiple videos on this, so I don't want to say too much more about it, but I love Record Power tools. Let me just state that from the outset. I have their lathe, I had a bandsaw, absolutely fantastic. I have a pillar drill, absolutely fantastic. Their dust extractors are fantastic. I love them. They're small, compact, and extremely powerful, but just the whetstone grinder was rubbish, and it was a big disappointment. So that's the only tool I think I have in my workshop at the minute that I regret spending money on. Other than that, everything else I am pretty happy with. So there we go. Okay, so quick update on the garden. A whole bunch of you guys were asking me questions about this and how is it getting on. Well, here is the planter now. You can see the vegetables are absolutely exploding out of it. The potatoes have taken over the whole thing, so I'm not going to put potatoes in this again next year. That was kind of a mistake. They get absolutely massive and take over the whole thing, but the spinach, the onions and everything are absolutely flying up out of this thing. And yeah, kind of delighted. It's a beautiful day today. Okay, so here's the arbor. I haven't painted it yet or decided what to paint on it, but I have added some lights to it, and these are solar powered lights. These have a flame effect, these ones, and these ones are just kind of bright little lights, kind of an old vintage style bulb in them. Looks absolutely fantastic at night time, and the garden is really coming on. So yeah, they're nice and cheap, cost effective, and a good way of getting light in your garden, and solar powered stuff has really come on. It's kind of doing me out of a job as an electrician, but yeah, there we go. Now, update on the Polytunnel planter. It's working absolutely fantastic. Everything is just busting out of the ground in this. So the tomatoes and the peppers, my chilies are actually all coming on now as well. Now, update on the 500 gauge polythene. It's a little bit on the light side. It is getting a few holes either here and there. A bunch of crows came down and attacked it, tore a big hole in this section, so you just can't have anything. So I might order some smaller cuts of 1000 gauge and swap that out. But it's pretty good at holding up to wind, no issues there. It's just cats and birds love to tear holes in things like this. So that's the only problem I've had with this so far. Now sticking with the garden stuff for a minute, here's a new tool that I just picked up. So this is a Stanley FatMax. Now I've looked at the Stanley FatMax stuff before. Looks pretty well made. I never pulled the trigger and bought one. This is a strimmer. Because I'm invested in the Milwaukee 18-volt battery system. I was going to buy the Milwaukee one of these, but that's about 380 euros body only. I got this with the batteries for 200 euros, and I have to say I am really impressed with this tool. So it has a brushless motor down here. So gone are the days of using petrol strimmers, and because it's not shaft driven from a petrol motor, you can adjust the length of this, so whatever height you are, the strimmer will fit you. Really strong brushless motor. I have to say, again, this is not paid for, not sponsored, but I am really impressed with this for the money. 4 amp hour lithium ion. I think it's an 18-volt battery as well. So yeah, they do a full range of garden products, so I'm definitely going to maybe invest in a few more Stanley FatMax stuff, because it's very cost effective and it seems to be really well built. I mean, I can't fault it so far. It's done my whole garden. One battery does the back and the front. So yeah, I might do a full review on some more Stanley FatMax stuff. Maybe might even test out their drill and impact driver as well, because like I said, for a hobbyist, this stuff is absolutely fantastic, and even maybe for a professional user as well as a backup. So there you go. Okay guys, so concludes the workshop vlog and the kind of channel and workshop updates from now. Like I said, it's absolutely fantastic that I've gone over the 60,000 subscriber mark. Thanks very much for all your comments, thumbs up and support and subscriptions. It really does help out a YouTuber. Every time you guys comment and give the video a like, it boosts it in the algorithm. So that really is the best way. If you ever want to help me out, just leave a little comment and give a little thumbs up, and it helps YouTube know to share the video with more people. So I'm not going to have too much content coming up over the next month, but I do have some projects planned. I'm not going to tell you the plans because I don't know if I'm going to be able to deliver on them or not, but I do have some more videos, hopefully in the near future. I'm going to take some holidays at the end of June. I haven't been on a holiday in 5 years now. So this is my first holiday in 5 years. I'm heading to Portugal, so I can't wait to get a break. So there's going to be not so much content over the month of June, and hopefully we get back into the full swing of things July and August, and then run on into the end of the year. I should be able to get some more woodworking projects coming up. But so hopefully the world does not come to an end between now and June, because I really do need a holiday, and the way things are at the minute, anything is possible. So I'm going to get out of here now, guys. I hope you're all safe and well wherever you are in the world. I hope you're enjoying the content, and just yeah, thanks very much for your support over the last few years. Absolutely fantastic. I've hit 60,000 subscribers. So until the next project, guys, take it easy. I shall see you then.